watching the tide roll away, just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Our producer for tonight's show would be no other than Mr. Sensational himself, Mr. Craig Gibson. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM. This is Tuesday, the 15th day of April, 2025. And if it's a Tuesday, you know the deal. It's Maritime Matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tuning in with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy for all your medical needs. Check out my little cousin Shantia McBride and a lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau and, of course, Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport. Fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site 101pharmacy.com. That would be 101 Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. The three locations are East Street South, Charles Sanders Highway, and Explorers Way in downtown Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, and at BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. Tonight, we wish to discuss all the heated recent maritime-related issues that could make our cut. Topics for tonight shall include the following. China-built ships. $1 million entry fee to be implemented on Thursday if nothing changes. Thursday as in day after tomorrow. We will have anytime a ship that's built in China enter any port into the U.S., they are fined $1 million to $1.5 million because President Trump decided part of this trade war he's having with China, he's going to go after those that are utilizing China-built ships. And as we know, a major supplier that brings in freight from Florida to the Bahamas and Florida to the entire Caribbean, namely tropical shipping, is operating with the vast majority of their ships being made in China. I say no more. We're going to come back to some details as soon as we get through with our break. Second topic, jet ski renters to wear body cams. Body cams. We want our police to wear body cams and they don't hardly do it, right? So Even in the US, some police don't want better body cams, so they turn them off. These are things that you can turn on and off. So if somebody want to do some skullduggery, you think they can leave the body cam on? No, they'll turn it off. Or take it off. Or wrap something in front of it over the lens. But these people putting body cams in place for jet skis is not the solution that we want, I wouldn't think, right? And then like some of the jet ski people are saying, who is going to pay for these? First of all, they got to be waterproof. Because jet skis, people on jet skis is fall off. What happens when the body cam and the person get submerged? You think they could pay that much money to get waterproof water cams? What do you call them? Cams? Body cams? No, I don't think so. Will this really make a difference if it was to happen? And now that we know it's not a good idea for it to happen, what are the present regulations surrounding jet ski rentals? How are we supposed to control these little fast motorbike on the sea? Because that's what they are. They're basically motorbike on the sea, eh? And some of them go very, very fast, especially the big ones. But most of them, they do speeds that speedboats do. Well, maybe a little faster. But how are we controlling our speedboats? Well, okay, people don't rent speedboats. All right, that's a different issue, right? But most of the time, the people driving a speedboat have experience driving speedboats. But the thing with jet skis is you got people pay their $100, $150, whatever it cost today. I know these cost $50 and $60 when I was at the port. But, everything going up. And when they pay that money, no matter whether they have a license to drive a boat or not, or whether they drove a jet ski before, they sitting on something, but sitting on the water, and that thing got a whole heap of speed. They ain't know nothing but rules of the road. And then they could go almost anywhere around Nassau on a jet ski. In an hour, they could do the whole Nassau and come back on a smooth day. So we're dealing with a situation where we have rules and regulation, but I can tell you, we need to take it a step further. Now, when I was at the port, we had many discussions on taking it further. As a matter of fact, when I was at the port, and I coming back with this later, too much to talk about now, right? We had a good grip on jet ski operations at our two major resorts. And anybody that owned a jet ski in the late 90s would be able to tell you that when Glenn Bain was at the port, there was nothing but respect. There was nothing, everybody wanted to cooperate. Well, you still had some who didn't want, but they knew that it was in their best interest to cooperate. Because they started to talk on one another. I want to go into some details, but we can wait till we come back after the break, because there's so many things about jet skis that need to be paid, attention need to be paid to, that we need to bring back the old system and combine that with whatever the new system is. And I can assure you, I can't never guarantee you that nobody got no accident and all the rest of that, but a lot of things can be avoided that we're hearing about today if we can get a grip on this thing. Topic number 3. I'm sure you heard by now that a group of staff from Great Stirrup Key, staff belonging to Norwegian Cruise Line, NCL, because they own the key, right? That's a private island that they own. And they're doing some big things there, big things about to happen. They actually started to build a dock, just like their neighbors, Coco Key, did about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So they also want to stop dropping that big anchor out and messing up the seabed every time they come to their key, and that's almost daily. And build a dock so the ship could come straight in, and they don't have to be tendering people to and from the key and all the rest of that. And that's very welcome. But we get reports that they paying their staff chicken feed. And then when I say chicken feed, even they ain't chicken feed, because chicken feed is make the chicken happy, eh? They paying their staff far below minimum wage in this country. And then they trying to put a spin on it to say, oh, well, yeah, they're working on the key, but they really belong to the ship, which is BS, as we know it, because if they belong to the ship, they should have a work permit to be on the key. Once they get that work permit and they're working locally in this country, all our laws apply to them. And we want to talk a little more about how those laws are being violated. Even if they were working on the ship, this money what they're making, $2 to $4 per hour, would not be acceptable, because they would be in violation of the ILO/IMO Code of Practice for workers on board ships. And I know about it because I manage ships and I had to comply. And they talk about the 10 hours a day and 6 hours continuous rest. You can't even have 2 5-hour periods of rest to make 10. You gotta have at least 1 6 hour. You can have 6 and 4, but you can't have, anyway. We can talk about that. We can talk about that later, right? Last but not least, our fourth big topic for the night. And I don't know how far we can get with our topics, but I think we need to get to all these tonight. So, my good old friend, Captain Herbert Brain, don't hold me up too much tonight, because, boy, we're going to have to get through all 4 days. Last topic. 5 feared dead after suspected human smuggling vessel capsized. Now, apparently we know from the earlier shows, they have a lot of people coming from Bimini taking migrants into Florida. And you don't hear about these things unless the vessel capsizes. So that suggests to me, and should also suggest to you, that many of these operations are successful. We only see about the ones when something gone wrong. I don't want you to think that every time they make an attempt, something's go wrong. And we all know that big bucks involved in this human smuggling. $10,000 a person. You can imagine a trip from Bimini across the Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Miami. I think in this case they were going to which end? They were going all the way to Port St. Lucie, right? They were off Port St. Lucie when they capsized. So, well, of course, that ain't hard to do, because if you know, the strong current in the Florida Straits pushes you up north. So although you may be steering for Miami, look here, you can end up probably West Palm Beach. So if you don't really understand navigation and understand that current can take you away from where you're trying to go, and you don't steer to compensate, you can end up a lot further than you want to go. But I guess they only want land. Once they reach land, they could always find a way. And I guess they could ditch the boat or something. I don't know, because I don't know. I don't have a clue what that boat look like, how much it costs. But I can only assume that if it flip over, it probably is a little rickety. Excuse me. So that's 4 topics for the night. And in recapitulating, the first one is China Bell ships. $1 million entry fee as of Thursday, if nothing changes. That's the implementation deadline, Thursday. And we've been getting a little here and there that it probably wouldn't be implemented as said. It might be implemented in some ways, but not totally yada yada. You know, we can see we gotta wait till Thursday, because the person who bring us that is an American chap who's supposed to know, but he still didn't give us no nothing tangible to hold on to. You know? Second topic is jet ski renters. Should they wear body cams? Well, of course, the answer is no. A third topic, $2 to $4 per hour salary for Norwegian cruise line staff working at Great Stirrup Key. What a bunch of nonsense. Last but not least, 5 feared dead. I knew 1 or 2 was living. Well, they find 4, I think, living. They said it was 9 in total, and 4 missing. I think they find. Well, I know. Anyway, the details is rather sketchy, but the bottom line is it is believed that 5 of them are missing, and the ones that are missing are dead. And those are the 4 topics we're going to cover tonight. We're talking maritime, people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to our first break, and when we return, we will engage these deep, solid, juicy topics. Listen, people, you do not want to touch that dial because you do not want to miss this one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bay. We are about to ensue a litany of juicy topics in maritime. My producer for the night is, of course, the sensational one, Mr. Craig Gibson. Good night, Annie Mae. Oh, you know I gotta say good night to my number 1 fan up there in Freeport, Auntie May. She's 92 years old now, people. 92 years and heading for 93. Auntie May, good night to you, honey. You know I'm loving you all the time up in here. Yeah, that's my spunkers. I tell you that. You're listening to Maritime Matters, and on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 17:05. That's 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to maritime in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and international maritime field. We ain't been doing international for a while, boy, because our domestic is so heated and so hot. Oh, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. The phone number to call us, should you wish to get in on the discussion tonight, is 326-8255. I say again, 326-8255. To hear a replay of this show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. 3 separate words. Just like you say, I love you, you say Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just go to your YouTube on your electronic device and type into the search box Maritime Matters Bahamas. And you'll see a litany of our shows going back all the way to 2022. Maybe 2023. I don't know, it's 2025? Yeah. We go back 2+ years, right? So that'll be 2023. So let's talk maritime. Hello. Details on our topics for tonight's show. Oh, we got a phone call. My goodness. Good night to you, caller. This is Maritime Matters. Thank you so much for calling.
How you doing today?
Top shape and getting better, my friend.
Yeah, let me chime in on some of those topics. Well, basically all of them. The Bahamas lack one serious, necessary thing, and that is adequate law enforcement.
Oh, yes, you right on.
You don't have adequate law enforcement.
Right on.
In no area.
Yes.
That's why we have all these things going on in this country. Don't mind these people getting up talking about how good they are at what they do. Listen to me. I'm a law-abiding citizen most of the time. And when I say most of the time, I break the law from time to time, especially in traffic. I work far and I live at the airport. I could do 100 miles an hour going and coming each way. I never see no police to stop me.
Right.
I never see none. If I want to, I could do 100 miles an hour on the streets every day.
That's provided.
Not one police in sight.
You're right. Absolutely.
If I don't want to, I don't got to wear a seatbelt for 5 years. There's no.
You're right.
The issues you're discussing is because of lack of law enforcement. Police should be on the street because there's traffic. There's traffic on the sea where jet skis is. They should have police out there where jet ski is operating. Police should be manning every area of this society. Or defense force or whoever has the responsibility for those jurisdictions. But right now we're suffering because of the absence of these kinds of services. You know, people should not be having jet skis running them out to people. You don't know if the people are intoxicated, and you don't care if they're intoxicated. You ain't asking no question.
No, you only want the money.
Yeah, if you see that they're intoxicated, you just think that's an easy prey, and there's no one there to say, hey, listen, not today.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. This country is on automatic pilot, and we just hope the automatic pilot take us to and from safety. That's how this country flies.
Yeah. Any recommendation as far as addressing how we can enforce some things, or what you think need to happen to correct this?
Well, what I'm saying is, you know, there's common sense and then there's politics, Glenn.
Oh yeah, politics, violence.
We have got to get away from politicizing everything. Mm-hmm. We've got to use our common sense and be more of country-minded than political-minded. If you know that these areas are unmanned and you have a job to see that they should be manned, then say to yourself, hey, listen, I've got a job to do. You know, yes, I'm a part of a political organization, but I have a job to do. I have a responsibility to my country.
But we don't know that
you
used to happen.
can't go down this road no more.
That used to happen to me in your days, right? But I can guarantee you it ain't happening no more, because these people ain't asking for no work, you know. They're asking for a job, and they let you know, man, I ain't looking for a job. I didn't come for no way. And they know they're getting paid every month, so they're trying to see how much they can make outside of that.
Hey, let me tell you something.
Everybody on the take.
Let me ask you a question. Is marijuana illegal in this country? I mean, legal? Is it legal to have marijuana in your possession?
Well, it's almost legal. I mean, but the thing is, even in the U.S., you know, if you want marijuana, you could get it. Yes,
I understand that, but in the Bahamas, has there a law been passed that says marijuana is legal and you can have it in your possession?
No, I think marijuana come under the dangerous drugs sort of thing. It is illegal, and it's under the penal code that, you know, you can be arrested if you possess it.
Listen to me. I drive in traffic. Never in my 60+ years of living I smell more marijuana coming with cars.
Man,
now
you wonder if the police are on the road, eh?
And the people are inside the cars in trouble. Ain't like they speeding by.
No.
They right there. They ain't hiding it.
They don't care.
So what? They don't care, and there's no authority that seems to care.
Yeah.
You see? And it's just, I don't know what word to use to describe it anymore.
Yeah, but you get the enforcement only looking to see if cars license so they can see if they can put some money in the kitty. They really ain't. A police, like in the States, will stop at a traffic light, pull on the side in the corner somewhere, just to see if someone can run that light. So people conscious to know that, boy, sometimes the police be waiting, right? You know, police over here ever do that, not even the speed cops.
Well, again, they are the speed cops.
Coming to the light and running the light like the light on green.
There are no speed cops. Because, see, that guy on the motorcycle, that's a guy riding a motorcycle. That's really not a speed cop. Okay. Because a speed cop, in my view, is identified by the job he does. Yeah. He should be out there looking for people who are doing infractions against the law. But they're not doing that. They're escorting politicians and funerals and whatever you name.
One of my other callers said that.
We lack enforcement. I mean, it might get funny, and your topics are very serious.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you, with the human smuggling,
yeah.
if you put the pressure on the persons responsible enough, you will see how far-reaching this goes. This ain't nothing that no fellow wake up from under one tree and say, you know, I think I can run some fellas to Florida tomorrow. No, this is organized.
Well organized. And there's a lot of money involved, so it'll always be happening.
Yes, but then we only could hear about, like you say, when something happened. Why don't we hear what is the outcome and how did they get to be doing these things?
Nobody checking for them. But I mean, it's very difficult though. I mean, if me or you want to smuggle humans from Bimini or West End to the States, we can monitor what's going on, and for both of us, people are going about and leave. That, you know, it's hard to stop that because they
we need some information though. We just can't. We need to know what's going on in that area. We just can't go on our own of what we think going on. We need some type of information from somebody who knows what's going on over there. We just doing this dead reckoning. We hoping to get away.
You're right.
We know we need some information. And that is what I mean by if you press these people, we should press them to find out who all is involved in this. But that right there, we seem to get close and back off in this country for some reason. So you know how that goes. But Glenn, you're doing a good job. Keep pressing on, my brother.
I appreciate you, man. And thanks so much for calling. Thank you so much. Man. Take care of yourself. Calling you on Maritime Matters. My apology for having you wait so long.
I would have waited anyhow. This is a very exciting topic that you're discussing and a very important one. One that's near and dear to my heart.
Okay. I'm Captain Brain. We still have another call. You want me to go to them and come right back to you? Or you
Yeah, you can do that.
Just hold 1 second. Call you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Hello, Captain Dan.
Hey, Malay.
I'm wondering if you was playing favorites around here today.
Well, you see, I get to you right away, right?
Right away. So that's one up for me.
Indeed. What you say?
So I wanted to just comment on the jet ski situations, right? Because we have different facets going on here. We had a death on Half Moon Key, and someone ran into a rock and died. We had the Harbor Island incident where someone also died. And then now we have several rapes. Some are reported and some are not reported. So we need as a country, as a people, to give the apparent to the Americans that we making some effort to address these things. Even if you now set up a steering committee, bring the parties to the room, sit down and have a discussion, because the jet skiers, for instance, road traffic, if you look at the way that the taxi call-up system goes, you look at the tourists and the ferry boats, they all have someone, different layers of management and so forth. The law provides for the government or support officers to write these guys up and take them to some type of court and get a judgment on them. Now, I noticed that they say, well, these guys are not actually licensed operators.
Well, they can say anything. The reality is they coming to these facilities where the licensed people are, and if they could come to these facilities without being licensed and be able to rent a jet ski. Back in the day when I was involved, I can tell you, those guys wouldn't even allow it. They wouldn't be able to come near that facility, because them fellas, if you don't have a licensed jet ski under the Boat Registration Act, not the Water Ski and Motorboat Controller, they wouldn't let you get near that beach. They pull together. They have an association in boat areas. Anyway, I can talk about that in detail in a little while.
Right.
But a lot can be done.
What is happening from my observation, I noticed on Montague, for instance, people bathing and catching a swim, they park the bikes on the beach as if that's their personal bikes, and they just ride in. They come beyond the swim line and park the bike on the beach. And then they solicit, the taxis are constantly bringing tourists to the beach, and so, they give them a really good price, and they get a ride right there in the Montague area.
Yeah,
and then if you go to the side by the fort, facing Atlantis, the north side, they in that cove as well with their bikes parked. So this isn't something that I assumed that they were launching the bikes and waiting for something while they had the bikes on the beach on the sand. But what they were doing is soliciting the guests that are coming to those concession stands that are there.
Yeah, but if you know this, right? I'm sure the port officers also notice. I'm sure the defense force personnel who do harbor patrol also noticing this. My thing is, all they can do is write down the bike number. All those bikes have numbers.
No, these are private.
Even if they're private, they still have numbers.
These are licensed as private, and so that's the reason.
But they still have numbers.
Because they have a designated area to operate. They can't just pull up on Montague Beach and.
Oh, they can. They could go anywhere. It's just that they doing it illegally. That's what I'm trying to say to you. Once you get in, every bike have a number, whether it's private or personal. They must have a number.
So the government needs to have the capacity to take the bikes from these folks.
You have that capacity, that's what I'm saying to you, but you need to write down the number. We need to have proof.
No,
Everybody got cell
write down the
phone.
number. I'm telling you that these are private bikes.
Private bikes also have numbers. I don't
No,
care.
they don't have numbers.
But if, yes, private bikes supposed to have numbers on them, just like private
They
boats.
don't. They don't have numbers
But if
posted.
they don't have numbers, then they're not registered. Or if they're registered, they're not complying with the law, which means they need to put the registration number on the bike. And that means the defense force or police can pull the bike right away. So they have to have numbers.
So lastly, what I'm saying is they need to have a steering committee to sit down, compare how Jamaica and the St. Lucius and Kitts. Remember, like 4 years ago, we had the same uprising with jet ski operators. Now there's another generation of them that come that don't want to follow the rules, and they make it hard for the legitimate businesses that are actually trying to stay within the rules.
But what I can tell you is they have that committee already appointed, and that committee name is the Port Authority Board. Now, if they strengthen the Port Authority Board and ensure that they do what they supposed to, like we used to do back in the day, and that's what I can talk about tonight, how we used to do it back in the day. We had this problem.
So you delusional if you think the Port Authority Board is going to go out on the beach and stop people with private vessels.
No, the police can pull them. No, but the thing is, if you have a private jet ski, you're not registered to apply for hire, and you're applying for hire, you can get pulled on your bike and get taken.
Right. Okay.
And then you got to go in court and try to get your bike back. All I'm saying is you can't just go around in a private car planning to use taxi. That's what they do.
After the port authority, like I said, when they establish who's responsible, how we going to govern, because even the jet ski operators that are competing with these non-licensed operators can take a photo. They can try to self-regulate, try to protect.
That's exactly what they did back in the day, because they had the support from the Port Authority Board, from myself as Deputy Port Controller, from the hotels from which they operated. We had a system, and that's what I can explain tonight. You wasn't around in those days, but I can explain.
You're talking about court, right?
I'm not talking about court. I'm talking about the strength
I'm
given to
gonna
the
let you
Port
get-
Authority Board and all the rest of it. Anyway, go ahead, darling. One more. We still talking about jet skis.
Me?
I said,
You mean me?
yeah, I mean you, baby.
Yeah, I'm saying that my last point is we need to take them before the court.
But that
We
they
need to
also
find them, not just the Port Authority Board. We need to physically take the owner
I'm saying
and the
to you
person
that
that's
I used to take them before the courts, and they used to get charged, and once the court charged them, we used to take them out of the system altogether. And that's another step we got.
You have to remember that these guys have not registered these boats under the Port Authority.
Well, the ones who didn't register the boats, the boats will automatically, because they can't go in a commercial zone with a boat that ain't registered. See, and that's what I tell you. The fellas who you register, they can protect their own turf if you set it up properly.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're right, darling.
Okay, bye.
Bye, honey. Thank you so much for calling. Call you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Hey, Captain Ben, how you doing, my brother?
Top shape and getting better, my friend. How are you?
But don't say that was right. It's Captain G.O. here.
Who's that?
Captain G.O., man.
Hey, God. Hey, how you doing, my good friend? What's happening, boy? So happy you called me tonight. You was the only one who's called me every now and then from back in the day.
Yeah.
What's
I'm
happening,
good, man. I'm good. But listen, man. Here's my question. I mean, you've been at the ports, and I think we are touristic destination, which means that water sports will always be a part of attraction to tourism for tourists.
Yes.
And has anybody ever done a study to see how many per year now, how many infractions? I'm talking about serious infractions like rape, rape reported crashes. Anybody ever done that? See, I guess what I'm saying is, that's an industry that people depend on for livelihood, the jet ski operators. All right, I'm sure there must be some regulations in place. And your first call, I think, spoke about enforcement. But that's critical to anything that you're doing. If you set up your laws and your enforcement, you might as well don't have them. But I want to ask you, as somebody who works at the port,
right,
what is missing? What is missing to make this industry viable and safe, and so we don't get these reports from governments saying this is unsafe, it ain't safe to do this and that? What What are your suggestions for solution to these problems?
My suggestion, and I wanted to go into the details once I get into it after all these calls, but my what I would suggest is we go back to where we was when I was at the port. I can tell you we galvanized all entities. The hotel played a major role. They had their securities writing reports for us. We were putting people in court. We were pulling people registration because the Port Authority Board met every month. We had a Port Authority Board chairman, and I can call her name when I get back. She wasn't playing with them. Those jet ski fellas, they respected her. They respected the board members. I won't call some of the board members' name back in the day. A couple of them have passed on. But I can tell you, G, we had this thing ticking and rolling. We had meetings at the hotel with all those jet ski people. That's Atlantis and what was they used to call it the Gaza Strip in them days. But what was Carnival Hotel out west? What is now Bahamas? We had meetings on top of meetings. The hotel even gave us a room where we could just go and overlook the jet ski people and watch them without them even knowing we were watching them.
Yeah.
And we were able to address, because we had a system where I myself was dealing directly with the AG office. They were giving me preference in getting some of those cases in the courts.
Right.
So we had a system set up, and I don't know, obviously I left the port. Harvey Sweeting, who's the port controller, I was reporting directly to Harvey. Harvey left the port before me. Anthony came in to take over from Harvey. I left, and I don't know what going wrong after that. But I can tell you that I think part of the problem is the person who's actually running the Port Authority Board needs to understand what it takes to get this together. They need to shake hands with the hotels, and I talk about the hotel managers. They want things to work properly on their hotel, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Because people, tourists coming are going to want to get into water sports.
They need to shake hands with the association.
You can't. You'll be shooting yourself in the foot to say, "Man, well, let's close this industry down." So I agree with you. There ought to be a system,
right?
That you can regulate. You have your rules and regulations, and these fellows who don't abide by the rules and regulations, there's some punitive things that have to take place.
Yeah, and
I just wanted to know, you understand, because you hear, I don't hear it constantly, but every now and then you hear something where there's somebody committed a rape, or somebody had an accident, and you don't want to throw the baby out of the bathwater.
But see, you find that there's a lot of jet ski owners that has these operators who are very young guys.
Yeah, I see.
Well, of course, a lot of them smoking grass and whatnot. I call it what it is, right?
Yeah.
And they come out there and they have no discipline. And some of them think it's their job to take tourists out, and the tourists want them to rape them. That's some of them think that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the thing is, the jet ski owners are bringing in people to operate their jet skis on the beach who are causing most of the problems. And I'm not suggesting, but I might suggest that we would have only the jet ski owner can be out there with his bike. So you can't own 10 jet skis because you can't operate 10 jet skis. A jet ski should be a franchise for one person because they make enough money out there to be a franchise for one person. And if the owner of that jet ski is out there with his jet ski to make a living, he'd be like a taxi driver, right?
Yeah.
But if the owner ain't there, and he put the young fellow there who ain't really paying, the more harassment that young fella do, the more money he trying to make, he's harassing, and they're totally out of hand. So
because I noticed it says that every one of these persons who running these bikes ought to be vetted by the police. As it goes through, there's a system so that is not happening.
The ones who running the bike should be the ones who own the bike. See, my thing is you could own up to 2 bikes. You shouldn't, because when you start letting guys own 5 and 6 jet skis, some of them don't even come out there. They send fellas out there.
I see what you're saying.
And the fellas running rogue. But they had associations back then. They had one for Cable Beach. They had one for Paradise Island. The associations were the ones who we give power to do the rotation, and they would work directly with the hotel securities. and they would point out people who were rogue.
And that seems to make sense.
And this is the only way you could deal with them, by taking their registration from them so they can't even go on the beach no more. And I know the port department got to the stage where they were sending officers to do when the guys bring their bike in the morning to make sure the bikes were registered, etc., etc. I don't know if they still do that. But like the previous caller said, some of them they don't come in the morning, they come riding from anywhere and just come to get jobs. But see, the association could take care of that problem if they are strong, if they are strengthened enough to do it.
Understood. Okay, man. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you,
Jim.
Jim.
Keep it a good work, my brother.
Appreciate the call, man, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, boy, Captain Brain, you can get mad and may get one more. Calling on Maritime Matters, hello. Okay, that one hang up. You ain't gonna get mad at me no more. Captain Brain.
Yes, Captain Brain. I would never get mad at you on Maritime Matters, but I'm mad at you about my chair, so thank you.
Man, I can take that, man. You 1 week ain't over yet, so you can afford to get mad.
Okay. Okay, yeah, well, this is a topic that's near and dear to me because I was involved with this jet ski situation from time immemorial, from in 2001 or thereabouts when I went to the port department. We were attempting to regulate the jet ski industry, and then for the last 13 years or so, I was on the other side attempting to regulate the industry under Atlantis.
So why didn't you give me a call so I could tell you how it was supposed to be done?
Well, I'm going to tell you what's going on out there. Okay. A lot of things that first of all, I agree with the first caller. It's just a simple lack of enforcement.
Yeah.
Just like how you have the transportation industry, the jitneys running rogue and speeding and carrying on, and seemingly nothing is being done. And just like how you have the guys on these little motorcycles with no helmet on their head every single day, up and down, passing policemen, whatever the case may be, nothing seemingly has been done. The jet ski operation is kind of similar to that.
But
there is some level of enforcement to the extent that every day, particularly on the port department provides officers to the beach, right? Now, then from time to time, when I was at Atlantis, we have engaged police to also assist with that effort because for the most part, the port officers are normally intimidated. Now, you got to remember now, the jet ski operators
intimidated is a good word to use. I know which word, you know which word I would use, but yeah, intimidated.
Yeah, they're intimidated. And we've had some altercation between jet ski operators and port officers and the like. And plus, some of them have in the past been compromised. And that's why they can't effectively do their jobs, right?
Exactly. Because they made a lot of attempts to bribe me. So I know what they like to bribe you.
Yeah. Some of them are compromised. They have gotten in some new officers in recent years who come out there, but for the most part, these people quickly become very entwined with the operators themselves, some of them know each other from across the bridge and all that kind of stuff, and it becomes very difficult for them to do their jobs. Now they do have jet ski. They do have an association or a couple of associations, but the problem is those associations cannot agree. We used to have actually monthly meetings with the operators, and they had folks from the association used to come to the meeting where we discuss some of the issues that we experienced for that month. But like I said, it's difficult in that the enforcement are not there because there are several layers of jet ski. There are the jet ski operators, several layers that you have the owners, you have the operators who hired by the owners. Some owners are in place, but they also have many operators. You have runners, persons who go there, particularly those unregulated portions of the beach, like Cabbage Beach, who go and solicit the job and bring the job back
to get a cut.
not so many of them, but they're there. Then they have the hangers on, these fellas who just there every day. You see them going over the bridge in the mornings. They're there to sell dope. The dope sellers. They mix in with the jet ski operators, and they become people. Everybody you see them, they are operators, but they're not essentially operators. They are hoodlums who come to sell dope, right?
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
What part did your Atlanta security play when it comes to the associations and the jet ski rotation?
Well, it was as a matter of fact, it was myself who organized these monthly meetings to bring them to the table.
I'm talking on an hour by hour basis. What part did Atlanta security, the men on the ground?
Yeah, okay. Atlanta's had security officers actually stationed on the beach.
Right.
And
now, what part did they
their job, right there on the beach, there was a designated area for the operators to work from. They were able to set up a table. They were able to have umbrellas to keep them in the shade and the light. And even then, with the security there, they used to drift very frequently out of their area. It was like a cat and mouse type situation where they come out, they go down, they come up to the step to solicit the guests. They go down the beach to solicit the guests. So they were kind of very unruly to a large degree. But for the most part, when the rotation was in effect, when they had certain persons in charge of the rotation, it worked. And let me just hasten to say that all operators are not bad, and that that particular activity is sought out by guests that come to the Bahamas. And let me tell you how much so. If you say today that John Doe, who has a private jet ski, or John Doe who is being barred from working for the month, he cannot work. And for the rest of the week, you're going to see him or his runners communicating with guests. They will organize it. Even guests before they come to the beach, they will walk down by the Cove, Paradise Beach, and they know that they can't come up on Atlantis Beach, but they will go and pick up guests from Paradise Beach, and they will still run their business. Same thing with these operators who operate from Montague. We know, and everybody is aware, that Montague is not a designated area for that activity. But again, it boils down to enforcement. Somebody have to be able to say, something. This company, this operator, this owner, he allowed, or he facilitated, or he didn't exercise enough custody over his bikes and allowed them to operate in an area that's not designated for jet ski operation. Well, now, Mr. Operator, you just lose that particular bike, or you're just that particular franchise.
Yeah, but why we have the defense force patrol and the police patrol out there all the time? Are they being made aware that these people shouldn't be in certain areas, or if they are, they could go there and take some information that can get back to the Port Authority Board who issues the licenses, so that when time to reissue licenses at the end of the year, these reports can be brought up and the license can be denied. See, this what I'm saying to you, that's why I asked you with your officers at Atlantis. We were getting reports on a daily basis when these people have infractions. And with those reports, they would go on the person's jet ski file. We would also draft something for the AG office to put them in court when it's something that violates the Port Authority Act, the Boat Registration Act. And in this case, they have a jet ski regulation. So if they violate that, they can actually go. The fine may only be $50. But they got to get a lawyer, we get record, so when they come back to the Port Authority Board for renewal, they ain't getting it. You see, these are the things that need to happen again.
We could take it a step further, and I can help you with this, right? We have had persons, in conjunction with the Port Department, we've had like sting operations where we stake out areas where we know illegal jet ski activity was being carried out. We actually caught jet ski operators, and the police came and took them away. The Port Department got all the reports and whatnot. What happened to those operators? and the persons who own those skis, I do not know.
Yeah, but see, we need that
Hold
needle.
on.
We need that needle to be threaded with the Port Authority. They're the ones with the power.
Well, therein lies my point.
And that's what I'm trying to tell you.
Montague, I'll give you Montague. We have had persons who went out there, took photos of the bikes being operated illegally. We've had persons who will have reported these things, but it's up to the Port Authority board to say, you know something, these operators are just want to be rogue, and so we're going to revoke these licenses. Your bike is no longer, your bike is confiscated, whatever. We need.
No, but you could revoke the license and make sure that the Defense Force Patrol Unit understands that these numbers are revoked. Give them an electronic copy. Let them know these. We want you to look and make sure if they're operating, they're in violation. We can put them in jail. Yada yada yada. We need some needles to be threaded.
Yeah, but I remember when I was at the port, we used to actually confiscate the bike. We used to put it within the fence area on Porter Ski.
No, you can't. I don't know if you have no rights to confiscate nobody's bike. But under what authority you would do that? Under what authority you would do that? I don't know if you have the authority to do that in the law.
We used to do that. I'm telling you what we used to do.
I said you didn't used to do it, but I'm saying you need the authority. If something go wrong with the bike, then who will pay for it?
We used to take them before the Port Authority's board, and the board used to deal with the operators. Mostly it was suspension for X, Y, Z length of time or whatever the case may be.
Okay, so we on the same
page. Those were things that we used to do as well. But
so did that stop? Did that stop?
Reality is this is a new generation of operators too. You got to remember they are very what word I'm looking for? They are very they're not so law abiding, and
yeah,
they're
but
not.
If you have a system that you maintain,
historically they had plenty running in with the law.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The problem is who are the owners who have them out there? You got to deal with the owners.
We know the owners.
Well, what does the Port Authority board do with these owners?
Again, that's where the enforcement comes in.
That's where the needle got to be threaded, because the Port Authority board may say nobody give us that information.
Board to act decisively and send out strong messages, and not messages that says, well, you could commit an infraction, and then 2 weeks later, after you do a layoff, you go and run by Montague while you can't operate within the designated area. You operate from Montague, or you operate from out west or Paradise Beach, and then 2 weeks later you're back in the rotation. We just need that need to be fixed, and we need strong people at the helm there who's going to make it so.
Yeah, but okay, so you all had meetings with the jet ski operators and the associations. Did you all invite the Port Authority board chairman or another member to attend those meetings as well?
Of course, we had the Port Authority was a part, and there.
I said the Port Authority board. I talking about the board members.
We met. That's the first order of business was to meet with the chairman of the Port Authority board and some of his members and articulate to them.
No, I mean during the meeting with the operators, were they present also? I'm just trying to get you to understand they need to be a part of it. The operators can get to know them. The operators can get to know the point man in the port. Somebody like Craig Curtis, somebody who we know could exercise the authority to make sure this thing happen. You know, you can't
Craig Curtis was a regular at our meetings. So too was the port controller who was also invited and on several occasions. So this was an intervention that actually, in my opinion, that bore some fruit, because they were better organized. They came up with uniform that they said they're gonna wear, and although at times they didn't, but there was a lot of improvements, in my opinion, to the day-to-day operation. But the long term, in order to have any real lasting impact on this industry, the industry needs enforcement. You need enforcement of discipline. And the reality is, I can tell you, the only people that the jet ski operators fear is the police. unless you have police on those beaches every day, nothing. They will intimidate whoever because of the fact that they, a lot of them think, well, I'm a thug, I'm a bad boy, or whatever the case may be. But and like I say, I go back and I want to say all are not the same, but they have a lot of bad apples in that bunch.
Well, it appeared to me as though the bad apples were allowed to take over because no jet skis are being revoked. No jet skis are not getting the owners are still being able to have their jet skis, although they have rogue operators handling them. All this got to come back to the Port Authority Board, who issues those licenses, who has the authority to suspend licenses and cancel licenses and revoke licenses, and the courts could become involved by way of Mr. Curtis or Mr. Boyenwright, just ensuring that they tie in with the Attorney General office to get some of these matters into the courts. And once these jet ski, some of them came back to me, boy, Mr. Bean, you see what you do? I had to go to court, I had to get a lawyer to pay all this money. Mind you, they only get fined with $50. But at the end of the day, they lost their franchise. They came back, some of them, but they came back with a different attitude. And the others will always get the message. I want you to know that they talk to one another. And if these owners know that, boy, I may lose my franchise because I got this rogue operator doing foolishness, they're going to pay more attention to the operators and all the rest of that. And if you get an operator who has and I'm not saying that the law says they can't have a criminal record, right? But those are things that the Port Authority Board could make their own regulations saying, your operator, we need to know, you need to register who your operator could be if you're not going to be operating this bike, and we need a copy of his clean police record, etc., etc. So these things can be done, and not allow people to just do what they want to do and get away with it. Because the impression I'm getting now
happens.
Pardon?
I think that happens now, Glenn, because
they have to name the operators now.
Because they do have to have a port-issued ID, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that part and parcel of that particular getting a port ID is to have produce a police record to the port department. So
you're saying that the operators out there, none of them have police records?
Well, like I say, I think that in order to get a port ID, you have to bring your police record. But we all know that there's lots and lots of folks out there with criminal records and the like. I don't know that. I don't, because if you tell me a port officer is out there every day and those jet skis have the name of the operators when they get registered, and apparently they have operators coming out there who ain't registered, because if they don't have a clean police record, they shouldn't be out there. Well, in most instances, the organized aspect, everything is not chaos, right? But there's a grouping that is organized, and then there's also a grouping operating from the same beach, like, for example, at Cabbage Beach. The operators that's at Atlantis West Beach or Atlantis East and Atlantis West, they are documented. They are the port officers there. He knows who they are, who's supposed to be there, because the listing comes out from the port department who is supposed to be at Atlantis East. But there's also jet ski rental at, say, Cabbage Beach, unregulated behind the Rio property there, right? Where there's no law, there's that's the wild, wild west.
Yeah, but jet skis have to have numbers, and if they're there, the Port Authority Board can deal with the owners of those numbers. See, that's where we need to go, You don't have to worry about the people. It's the jet ski causing the people to be there. So if that jet ski could be pinpointed, and they know that if they carry the jet ski there, it's going to be highlighted, and they're going to be called in, and they're going to lose their friend, they're not going to do it.
But you have a very precarious situation when you talk about these jet skis that are not regulated, right? Because of the fact that they very often, and I could tell you, very often they claim, "Oh, this is just my private jet ski. I was these some friends of mine, and I permitted them to ride on my private jet."
Private jet skis also have to have numbers. And if
but private jet skis, you could have a private jet ski and allow your friend to ride on your jet ski.
Yes, you can. But if you come to a commercial area, and I tell you, but this is a commercial area.
Cabbage Beach.
Say again?
Cabbage Beach, Paradise Beach.
No, but if you know they're coming there to solicit, right? That could be any beach in the world. The bottom line is even if they come into Montague Beach, once you know they come there to solicit, and you can get that number and you see them soliciting, then the port controller can call, because now remember private bikes don't come under the Port Authority board. But the port controller call them in and let them know, look, we heard that you were in this area soliciting your bike or whatever the case may be, and we can take your registration from you. Because if they don't have a registration and they operate, then they're breaking the law.
I don't think
there's a way to deal with these.
I think private, but there's no requirement, if I'm not mistaken.
There's a requirement for them to be registered under the Water Ski and Motorboat Control Act. Don't tell me. Yes, there is a requirement. Anything that goes more than 15 miles per hour on the street needs to be registered under the Motorboat Control Act.
But the fact of the matter is it becomes very complicated when you have a private entity who's saying that I am loaning my bike to some friends for them to go on a private joyride.
It's not complicated if you have evidence that they are soliciting on the beach.
There's exchange of money. There's no evidence.
No. You could have everybody got a cell phone. All I'm saying is, like the previous caller said, that these people come and solicit. This is information that we have. These people solicit on Montague Beach.
We know that they are soliciting.
Yeah, but if we know they're soliciting, they need to capture their numbers. They need to know that they're going to be followed up on, so they wouldn't come back there.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is this, right? Like I said, there were individuals who actually took photos of them, of the jet ski operators.
Were those owners of those jet skis called in by the
in Paradise Beach and the like? It's a matter of whoever's responsible and whoever's charged with enforcement of this.
No, that's the Port Authority. That's the Port Controller and his team. Once they get that report, what?
They have to do their job. They have to do what they ought to be doing to cause people to fall in line, or else people will stay out of line.
That is what I am saying. They are required to address these things. Do you have the Defense Force Patrol Unit that really needs to be tied in with the Port Authority and the Port Department to insist on enforcement? I ain't go far as the police because they got their own agenda, right?
Well,
but the Port Authority, the Port Department now, I understand, even has a boat that they could go to check Montague Beach and they could even go by car. And if they see these bikes, they need to call them and, hey, excuse me, you soliciting and you don't have a registration to apply for hire. You need to come see the Port Controller.
Well, I can say that we have had very good cooperation from the Defense Force and their team, their Harbor Patrol Unit. Every time we call the Harbor Patrol Unit when there's infractions like the one that we are talking about now, where operators are operating out of designated operating areas or
yeah, but are they reported? Do those reports reach to the Port Controller or the Port Authority board?
Well,
just calling the police and Defense Force to move them, that ain't good enough for me.
No. I can say that those reports do reach the Port Department and the Port Controller.
So
and,
the Port Department falling down on the job.
I would hope that somebody in the port would be listening to us and able to confirm that they do get those reports. And yes, the BDF do assist. I think the BDF also have several jet skis as well in their arsenal of equipment to be utilized on the waters. I think also the port has one or two. So there it's just
so we just need to pull all these bikes in and start revoking licenses, not renewing them, and putting these people in court because they're violating the law. That's what we need to do. So it boils right back down to the Port Department and the Port Authority board.
Lack of enforcement is the real issue with this whole jet ski situation.
Yeah, and let's stop talking about all we need body cams and we need this and we need that. That's a bunch of foolishness.
But more importantly, if you look at the jet ski, if you look at the situation with the jet skis, the jet ski situation, that's just a small microcosm of what the whole of this Bahamian society is all about.
Yeah, but it's impacting tourism. It's impacting. Yeah, but Herbie, this whole Bahamian thing with the children in school and children don't want to come to work. And I know what you're talking about, but the reality is we don't have a board in place to address that. We don't have a Port Authority in place to address that. We have people in place to address these things, man. Let them. They need to do their job. They need to step up and cause these jet ski operators to be disciplined. They have the power to do it.
I think a good place to start, in my opinion, and is to address those things that you see every day, that everybody sees. Most of the people who see the jet skis operators operating in rogue capacity at times are people who work in and around the beach, whatever. But we see every day the jitney drivers speeding and overtaking, and the buses crowded,
speeding and overtaking and affecting our tourism industry.
They are.
Well, not the way jet ski, not the way we are. Tourists are being told not to come to the Bahamas because the jet ski operators doing things and the jet ski is a problem and a mess and this and that. They're not being told don't come to the Bahamas because the jitney drivers driving recklessly.
What you have to remember, this lawlessness, this is a.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that shouldn't be addressed. I'm sure we have a mechanism to address that also, right? But now
it sounds like a disease, because if you can address the one thing, the law, you can address the jet ski operators.
Yeah.
Then you don't hear every morning when the police report go out and the amount of tourists who get robbed or whatever the case may be. Right, that's another issue.
That's not
issue.
Yeah, but that ain't no maritime issue, so I ain't the one who could be addressing it.
Well,
I address in the things that I know how maritime could address.
Lawlessness in this country, on the whole.
I agree.
Let's get our country on track by addressing lawlessness in all its forms.
Well, let's see how they can be addressed. See, I know the maritime requirements. I know the laws and regulations that are placed in maritime to address these things. That's why I'm trying to deal with the maritime stuff. Now, the other ones, road traffic up this year.
Let me throw the suggestion that
immigration up this year.
A suggestion to fix that may mitigate against some of these issues concerning alleged rape or whatever, right? Mm. At some point, I made a suggestion years ago that we invest in some big, huge orange buoys and we put them at sea. It's very similar to the ones we use in sailing. And we say, hey, this is an operational area for the jet skis. You have to stay within the line of sight. You can't go beyond the orange buoys. You have an enforcement officer there on his jet ski there, and whenever the jet ski gather area, the whistle blows, he goes and you got to go back into the operational area. That, in my opinion, may assist in mitigating some of these, will definitely assist in mitigating some of these complaints. However, all that falls under the banner of enforcement.
Yeah, but I don't think that if I rent a jet ski, I should be told that I have to remain within a particular area. I should be able to go anywhere with my 1 hour and do what I want to do.
You put in place rules to govern industries. You know that there's an issue with persons going behind the rocks.
No, it ain't got to be no issue. If you don't have these rogue people out there, you shouldn't be out there. They could go behind the rocks and ain't nobody can worry about that. That ain't be no problem. The problem comes in with the type of operators you got operating, running rogue out there, and ain't nobody putting them in check.
No, Glenn, they have to be rules.
You have rules. Yeah, but don't tell me a jet ski operator who want to go around the island and come back should be restricted to saying you got to stay right in this area. And this is already a congested area.
You have to say, particularly, you females in particular, or whatever the case may be, all of you.
No, I don't agree with that. I can't buy into that. That don't make sense to me. Not if you talk about it does.
You may not buy into it, right? But that is necessary based on the prevailing circumstances.
I don't think that's necessary. I think if the port authority board and the port controller and his team get together and put pressure on these fellas the way it was back in the day, they themselves will protect their industry from those rogue fellas.
So you think that a young 15-year-old girl,
a young 15-year-old girl should not be allowed to rent a jet ski?
Should go on a jet ski with an operator and go around
No,
the
the
rock.
operator don't rent no jet ski. The operator should not be allowed to take no 15-year-old girl on no jet ski.
Do you
See,
think
these are the things that you want to focus on.
18-year-old guests in the Bahamas should be able to go around the rock with a rogue fella who and there's no restriction. They could just go around the island.
No. If let's say the girl is 24, and if she want to carry one fella with her on a jet ski that she rent, how you can stop her?
24. I don't think that is something that we allow. We could regulate our country and our industry the way we see fit, and we know that we have an issue with these guys. So let's fix it.
But how are you going to tell a 24-year-old woman?
Yes, maybe.
How are you going to tell a 24-year-old woman with 2 children? You can't carry nobody with you on this jet ski beyond this buoy right here.
Oh, you cannot go beyond the orange buoy.
That don't even make sense.
The operation area. That's it.
No.
Just like you have swim lines that go on around beaches to protect guests and to keep them safe. That's an initiative to keep the guests safe. And sometimes, in order to keep them safe from themselves, because very often a lot of them are very inebriated. They jump on these skis. They don't have no experience on these skis and whatnot. And worst case scenario, some of them unfortunately have killed themselves in the past, have died.
We gotta agree to disagree on this one, because people is rent car and die. Come on, man. You making it seem like because they rent a jet ski. No, there's rent car and motorbike and thing and die. That's just how it goes.
That is why we have laws in the country and around the world say do not drink.
Caller, I see you on the line. My good friend Captain Brain getting me hoarse tonight. I think we could agree to disagree. We could agree to disagree on that one, right? But most of the points you made, I guess, but all except that last one, I really think is good, and I think me and you are on the same page, and we really need to address this jet ski. You could hold the line. Let me get this next caller, or you hold the line. Let me get this next caller.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Maritime Matters. Oh, that's me and my best friend. That's been Robin. I am Captain Glenn Bain, your host, and tonight we are covering a litany of topics. The hot one seems to be jet ski renters, and we're really talking about regulations surrounding jet ski rentals. We're talking about what could be done about the concerns and complaints toward jet ski operations in general, and we're not only talking about jet skis that operate for hire or registered to operate for hire, we're also talking about jet skis that are not registered to operate for hire, but moving in certain areas and trying to actually solicit people for hire. We covering a lot of what should be done, what has been done in the past about jet skis, etc., etc., etc. Now we have 15 minutes, 13, 12 minutes left. We got to talk about the $2 to $4 per hour salary for NCL staff. At Great Stirrup Key, we want to talk a little bit. Well, we killed this one last week with the China ships, $1 million entry fee. We said that Thursday's implementation date, that's Thursday coming, and we want to see what goes down, right? There's a deadline. We know Tropical Shipping has a lot of their ships that were built in China, and we believe that Tropical Shipping would probably have to go into bankruptcy if they can't do something real quick, because I don't think that the people that they service are going to be prepared to double the cost for freight. I think they say somewhere in the range of $2,500 per container coming in, per 40-foot container coming in after if Tropical was to maintain their operations with those ships that were built in China, and this $1 million per entry goes into effect Thursday coming. That's a big cost to take on, and you do have vessels that are not built in China, some of them owned by Bahamian operators or owners, and maybe that will be a way for the country to make more money by Bahamian ownership getting more involved in bringing these containers into the Bahamas from Florida, even if in fact they use Tropical facility as a base to do so. And we're not going to get too much into that tonight any further because we only got 10 minutes left, as you can see. I'm about to go on my next break. And when I return, we will go to $2 to $4 per hour salary that the Norwegian Cruise Line staff working at Great Stirrup Key are saying that they're being paid. Is this even legal? I mean, why are Bahamians? And then they also claim that Bahamians are outnumbered 5-1 when it comes to employment at Great Stirrup Key in the Bahamas. And then what about those other private islands in the Bahamas? Are Bahamians outnumbered 5-1 with those other private islands also? These are things we got to really be concerned about. And these are the things that our officials really need to take in hand. We talked briefly about the 5 people fared dead after a vessel capsized that is believed to have been smuggling migrants into Florida from Bimini. It capsized off where a place that my cousin Keith live. That's Port St. Lucie up there in just north of West Palm Beach. And again, we need to know what's happening with that. We'll be almost out of time. But when we return, we're going to address the Norwegian Cruise Line staff complaints and issues pertaining to the $2 to $4 per hour, not being paid overtime, working 10 hours a day instead of 8, and all the rest of that stuff. So ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Maritime Matters. I'm your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Please stand by. We shall be back shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. And, we really have a hot session tonight because we've been talking mainly about the jet ski renters. How they need to be controlled, methods of how they possibly can be controlled, how they used to be controlled back in the day. Well, not controlled, but they had a system of cooperation where we had far less issues, far less radical operators, because they know that they were not allowed to they were not going to be able to get away with those things so readily. And I know back in the day we had a lady called Daphne Duncan Cooper. She was a senator, and she took over the Port Authority Board as chairman. And below her was my friend. He was deputy chairman. That's Clifford Nottage. And I don't know if the lady that just had an article in the papers is related to Clifford. But I can tell you she was on point with a lot of things she said. And between Senator Duncan Cooper, Clifford Norris, we had people like Adler Minus, may his soul rest in peace. Mr. Gibson owned Apex, may his soul rest in peace. Mr. Robert, what Robert name was, the one who was part owner of the dry dock right there before the plaza on East Bay Street. Robert, what your last name was? Yeah, he was also part of the board. And these were serious people. These people didn't play around with jet ski fellas. They didn't play around with mailboat owners. They didn't play. But once you get a registration from them, you can fall in line. That was their attitude. And of course, I was there pushing them. And they always relied on me to bring the information and to follow up whenever they get reports. And that's what we did. And people were kind of like staying in line when it comes to registration being maintained under the Port Authority Act, under the Boat Registration Act. And of course, the Port Controller Harvey Sweeting, I got his full support when it comes to dealing with matters under the Water Ski and Motorboat Control Act. And we had things sticking, but of course, like my good friend Captain Brain indicated, people are different today. Ain't like how it was then. Boy, and we only got 5 minutes left. Lord, look, I even ain't get to the salary situation for NCL staff. Yes, I can get to it, because we can talk about it right now. Now, it has not only been reported, but we saw it on Shanique Miller's show last night. We heard it, we saw it in the press, where employees, NCL employees, Norwegian Cruise Line employees, that are based at Great Stirrup Key, because Norwegian owns Great Stirrup Key. They're saying that their salary they were getting when they add everything up and check everything out, less than $4, between $2 and $4 per hour. And we know that our Labor Act applies to anybody working in the Bahamas. And then it's being twisted a little bit to say, oh, Norwegian Cruise Line say, well, they don't come under the Labor Act in the Bahamas because they still belong to the ship. Well, if they belong to the ship, they shouldn't have a work permit. Once you get them a work permit to work ashore, and they work ashore, our laws applies. So our laws applies, and that means that whoever the employees were, and we know there's NCL, They were in violation of the law. Now, are they going to be made to back pay these people? Are they going to be made to adjust that salary immediately, if not before? Are they going to be put in court for violating the law and prosecuted? I don't know what's going to happen, but this is a matter we need to watch. And the realization that they get 5-1 foreigners working in the Bahamas, where we have thousands, hundreds of thousands of Bahamians that need work. The reason, obviously, is because they couldn't do Bahamians like that, pay them $2 and $4 an hour, $3 an hour. So they decide they could bring people in from countries where they could take advantage of them, because that's exactly what they were doing, and pay them below the minimum wage in the Bahamas, and feed them and hope they're happy, because in their country they ain't gonna make that kind of money no how. But my thing is, why would our government give out over 100 work permits to do basic things that Bahamians can do? Why aren't these companies made to hire Bahamians? How could they get a work permit to do something that Bahamians can do? Because they're the cruise ship and they own their little private island? What a bunch of nonsense. We know we are a slack country. We know that we are a country that a little couple dollars just do a lot of things. And I'll be the first to believe that they're getting away with this foolishness because somebody is being paid in the pocket to allow them to get away with it. Somebody have to be responsible for these work permits being processed and going through. Because it should not happen in our country. So, Great Star Key, Cocoa Key, Half Moon Key, Castaway Key, Princess Key, and what the next one named down there? The new Disney Key. Lighthouse, is this the Lighthouse Point or whatever that name? All of them needs to be investigated. Not only by our labor board or our labor department, but also by the immigration department to find out. The immigration department is the ones who issue these work permits. If they got them, I don't know if they have them for real. But we need to go find out why so much foreigners working in these places where Bahamian could work. We need to right this ship, because this ship right now is upright. It's listed. It's lulled. And we need to get it upright or untangled. Because it has been exposed and we have no more excuse. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we close our show because we're fresh all the time. I really didn't want to close there. I got so many things I wanted to say. But time is time. You are listening to Maritime Matters. Maritime Matters was brought to you tonight by 101 Pharmacy, Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport, Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. Thank you for listening to our show. I thank my good producer, Mr. Craig Gibson. And I'd like to say good night again to my Auntie May. I thank my great callers. We had some great callers tonight. This show was a caller show, and I love it. Thank my great callers tonight for making the show. Even my good boy, Godfrey. No, Abby, and my lady, and oh man, look here. We had a good time. We had a good time. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, unfortunately, I gotta go. And I say, Maritime Matters, tick, tick, tick. Tick, 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 tick. Out.